Well, it's now 10:30 and it's time for Brainstorming the Human Connection, brought to you by the South Dakota Humanities Council. And we'd like to remind you that this is an interactive program. It's a program where we look forward to your questions, comments, exchange in views, and it's a chance to, one, learn what other people other than myself and our guest will have to say, but also a chance to raise questions that we might not have thought of, maybe something you hear, and it may be clear to those of us who have chatted about it before, but somehow you didn't get it. And if you didn't get it, probably somebody else missed it as well, probably because it wasn't covered. So if you ask a question or make a comment, it'll give people something to react to, and gives us a chance to clear up any kind of fogginess on the subject. So probably you hear a lot of things, or, at least in the newspaper, you hear some things anyway, about things that are happening on the reservation. Unfortunately, a lot of that stuff is not, good. Like, so there always seems sometimes that they're in crises, and all we hear about are the crises, And one of the things I feel that gets underrepresented is all of the work that people are doing to overcome some very real challenges, and challenges that, if we look at it fundamentally, it wasn't of their own doing. They had their own balance and things like that, but changes in culture and colonialism, etc., has unstable or destabilized a culture. And if we look at things like, after the Roman Empire sort of retracted or pushed out, it took Europe over 400 years. And they're still fighting over all of those things, and still finding destabilization. So it's always useful, I think, to look at the people who are struggling against the kind of odds that are brought on them completely outside and, sort of, out of the blue of when you look at it historically. And there are people who are doing, from my mind, heroic things. And they may look like small things, but they are the underpinnings of recreating and reconstructing a society that was intentionally decimated. So today we have one of those people that I think of as a kind of hero. We have Rose Fraser, and she's working with the Oyate Teca Project, and we're going to be finding out the kind of things that they are doing. So welcome, Rose. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Wow, that's an introduction there, but thank you.
Well, okay, so let's talk about the 50,000-foot view of first. Who is Rose Fraser? Can you tell us something? Give us your elevator speech, or your the promotional video. What that you made. Give us that.
Okay, my name is Rose Fraser. I live in Kyle, South Dakota on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I have been married for 33 years. I have 3 sons and 2 grandkids. And I love what I do. I'm the executive director for Oyate Teca Project. I've been there for almost 25 years. So I help develop and create a lot of the activities that we have going on there. I love what I do. There's so many positive elements of our program. So I would love to talk and go into more about it.
Okay. Then let's talk about the Oyate Teca Project. And what is it? What is the 50,000-foot view? What are the overall goals? We're going to get under the hood of it in a minute, but what are some of the overall goals, or what are you trying to deal with? What are the things that cause you even to be?
Okay, so our mission and our goal is promoting the well-being of children and their families through health, recreation, cultural, and youth activities. So we have a wide range of activities that we do. We work with the kids in our culture programs. It's actually, we went from working with little kids 0 to 18 When we had our small building, we now moved into a new 21,000 square foot building that has a lot more classrooms. We came from a small one kind of room, 2,400 space building. So it was like, we can only have one activity per day. And so if we were gonna have like our arts class or whatever, we would have to have that on a Tuesday. If we were gonna have music class, you have to have it on a different day. If we were gonna do our sewing and our cultural programming, it'd have to happen on Monday. Our gardening programs happened on Wednesday, and then Thursdays and Fridays was dedicated to the youth. Now with our new building, we're able to have all of our programming happening daily. And so we moved it to not work with the little kids, but we work with middle school, high school, and the community. And in those classrooms that we have right now, we're able to have our cultural classes 5 days a week if we choose to. And we work with after school programming. We do a lot of the cultural teachings with our regalia and the dances, the different dances and things that we do. We work with those ones. And then we have an art space. So we do a lot of different kinds of arts. They're doing painting, they did beading, they did art, just regular mesh. I mean, just anything that you can think of for the arts. They have made the breastplates for the regalia, they have done concho belts. There's just different things, different and everything for art. We have guitar lessons in that art room. Those ones are held on Tuesdays and Thursdays for beginner and advanced. And then we have a classroom that we utilize for our team leadership programs or our gardening program. And our gardening program is a 9-month gardening class. We also have a gymnasium, which we utilize for open gym for the community. And that was been a really big hit for. We have it open 2 hours a day for each level, the middle school, high school, and community. We have a home economics kitchen. A teaching kitchen is what we call it, but it's a 4-station home economics from like old school. So there's 4 different stations there. And so we're able to teach cooking with the produce that we grow. We have a commercial kitchen in there where our producers are able to utilize our equipment. And then we have a cafe in there. And the cafe is called the Bluebird Cafe. And we also have in our old building, we turned that one into the farmer's market so that we would be able to sell our produce that we grow. And then we have a mobile market where we can take our produce out to the districts because Pine Ridge is very rural. It's considered a food desert. And we don't have a lot of grocery stores. We have one that's in Pine Ridge, and Pine Ridge from Kyle is like 67 miles away. And then our nearest Walmart is in Rapid City, which is like 89, 90 miles away. And then there's another one in Chadron, which is also 100 miles away. So our grocery store and our fresh produce is very limited. So we wrote grants to try to get the mobile market. And with that mobile market, and we're not trying to make $1 million or, make a buck on it. All I want to do is I want to have our communities to have access to fresh vegetables. So we grow the vegetables and we take it out to districts and we sell it in our bus. And then we have we take EBT SNAP benefits for our produce too. So there's a lot of activities that we do in there. There's just so many things that we have going on in that youth center.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit more about the Medicine Root Gardening Program. Can you tell us like some of the things that you're doing with that program?
Yes. So our gardening program was developed in 2016. I myself personally, I took a USDA class, beginner farmer rancher class. And I took that because I had horses and I wanted to learn how to take care of horses. And so I took it, and in that class, there was a horticulture part of it. And at that time, we were trying to do a gardening program in our youth center. And I didn't know that it was there's so much to learn about gardening. I didn't realize how much went into it. And my great grandparents, they were actually potato farmers. I didn't know that until I got into the whole gardening scene and stuff with my grandmother. And then she started telling me these stories about how they would do their potatoes and they would take them to the market and stuff like that. So it kind of turned into something a little bit bigger. And I love the way that I've learned how to garden and the techniques, different gardening methods and things like that I've learned. I wanted to bring that into our community. And so we started, we got our first grant for a gardening program in 2016. So I went and sought out the person, my instructor that I had for the BFR program. I asked him if he would come and teach a gardening class. Well, we started out at the youth center with 8 students in 2016. And then the next year we had 22 students. And then the next year we had 42 students. And that was just for the Medicine Room area. And our population, I think they say, is like 4,200 people or 2,400. I can't get the population. I get different numbers every time. But there was a person in our gardening group that says, you know, hey, you know what, I heard this person from Montbelier that wants to come, you know, and there's this other guy that wants to come from Pine Ridge. Why don't you open it up? And I didn't really understand. I didn't think that it was going to go off as well as it has. So when we opened it up to reservation wide, we had 72 people that showed up for the gardening class. And I was just totally blown away by the amount of interest that people had in growing their own food. So from there, we developed a program and we squeezed everybody into that small building. It was real tight. And what we do is we feed them supper because people come straight from school, they come straight from work and stuff like that. So from 5 to 6, we fed them dinner. And then from 6 to 8, we had a 2-hour class. And I didn't think that people were going to continue to come back. But out of those 72 people, and then it's a 9-month class, we finished with 63 people. So that's a really good success rate on the program itself. Yeah, so we started developing it, and over the years we removed certain classes, we combined classes because it was really long, and it still is long. It's a 9-month gardening program. And so we have from January to May, we have indoor gardening lessons, and those can be anything from garden planning, irrigation, soil, seeding, anything that you need to learn about gardening. So we have these classes that are held once a week. And then in May, we have 5 indoor or 5 hands-on classes on our farm, our little farm, so that the students are able to implement some of the teachings that they learned in our classes. And then from there, they're able to implement whatever method that they want to choose that they can take home and implement in their own gardens. So we have 5 different methods. We use the Mittleiter method. We use containers, square foot gardening, row gardening, no-till gardening, and hay bale gardening. And so these are the methods that we teach within the 16 weeks of the winter months. And then we have them do a garden plan of what they want to plant, what they want to eat. Are they planting for themselves? Are they planting for a farmer's market? And it just kind of goes on and on about. So this document that they create just kind of follows them till the end of their gardening season. It's kind of like a garden planner. And for every lesson that they complete, if they complete, first of all, when they first get in there, they get a gardening manual, a binder, and a jump drive. So throughout the whole gardening program, they're rewarded with incentives that we call tools for success, so that they can continue throughout the continuing years, continuing what they're doing in their program. So when we go on, we start off with the gardening manual, the jump drive, the binders, and then a calendar. And then we go through those and we tell them what our growth season is. And it's funny because we're on a Pine Ridge reservation, but there's different for frost dates for people that are 40 miles away from us. And it's like a week or whatever, but there's still different frost dates for each of our little communities there. So we had all of these programs going on. And then so the gardening program itself, for every section that they complete, they get incentives. So they get that one. And then we have them with their seedlings, their soil, and their trays. And then each one of the students are able to utilize our greenhouse, which is a heated greenhouse, to start their seedlings. And then we tell them what suggested days they are to plant them. So it goes into real detail. It's a really in-depth gardening class that I'm really proud of. And then in the summer months, we let them go off on their own from May, June, July to kind of tend to their gardens and stuff like that. But before, as they go on and they choose what kind of garden they want to do, whether it's square foot gardening or the hay bale gardening or things like that, we help them set up their gardens. We provide the fencing, we provide the irrigation, and then we provide gardening tools for them in May. So at the end of those 16 weeks or 21 weeks that we have, then they get all these incentives and they go and they tend to their own gardens. We encourage them to participate in our farmers market. We ask them to. It was just something that we have like seasonal entrepreneurship. So if they're interested in doing seasonal entrepreneur, then we come up with different financial literacy classes for them so that they can take a small business class and become aware of how to manage their money. And then in July, we go on this garden tour and we go and see everybody's gardens. Every year for the past 6 years, we have toured at least 40 gardens. And some of the people that have been in those classes are still taking classes with us. And now they're going into bees, they're going into chicken production. And so it's just a really good way of sustainability is what I'm trying to have people do. So they do this, we go on a garden tours, and then when the produce starts coming in and they're participating in the farmers markets, and we also teach them how to preserve their foods. So we have food preservation classes. So we do water bath canning, we do dehydration canning, we do pressure canning, and now we have the opportunity for them to use our freeze dryer. In our new building, we have a freeze dryer. So there's all these different techniques, but we also try to incorporate some of our cultural teachings and stuff in our traditional way of drying our foods and traditional way of processing our foods. So we do those ones, but we also encourage value added items like zucchini bread or, things like that. And then our cooking classes that we have, we try to teach them how to, one of the things that we heard whenever we was doing the gardening program was, how do you process or how do you cook those foods? That was one of the main things that they always asked us was, how do you cook it? So that's why we want that teaching kitchen. And honestly, we haven't implemented any teaching classes because this is going to be the first year that we had an actual kitchen. So we're still trying to work on our planning for that. And then, so they go into the whole food preservation, and then we participate and we network with the College Center to do a gardening show, kind of something similar to 4-H. And then in October, we do a final graduation kind of thing for them. So that's a whole 9-month process that they do. So it's very interesting. People love it, and we're happy to provide it.
You mentioned that people come from as far away as Pine Ridge, that's quite a ways to come.
Yeah,
but now
they do.
But you also mentioned that that you have these programs like kind of like in the afternoon. It sounds like you said when people get off work or get out of school. But those people coming from Pine Ridge, from a Standing Rock, wouldn't they have to like stay there, or do they? I can't imagine they drive every day to get there. By the time they finish, they'd have to and get back. They'd have to be on their way back.
It's not Standing Rock, it's Pine Ridge. And so the furthest one we have was 87 miles away. She came from Slim.
Oh, 87. Okay.
Yeah. And then so that's like west of Pine Ridge, west of us. And then the furthest east of us was 67 miles. And they came. I mean, I was totally blown away that they continued to come every week.
Yeah. 67 miles, even 80 miles, that's that's a doable thing. But when you start talking 100, and because I heard that some people were coming from the far away reses,
But they did. We had people coming from Laura Brew. We had 2 ladies coming from Laura Brew. And it blew me away that they would drive that distance. And that's like a 2-3 hour drive. Yeah. And she came like maybe 6 times. And the weather got bad because we have our classes during the winter months. So she wanted to do Zoom and stuff like that. So we ended up doing Zoom, and we actually were able to get a larger attendance using Zoom.
Through this. That's great. That's great. Well, especially in our area, we can use Zoom to great advantage because a lot of things get canceled because of weather. But when we got Zoom, we may not be able to do it as well, but we can do something, even if we can't do everything, and keep the ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to open it up at this point. We'll get back to our conversation, but I want to give our esteemed panel here a chance to ask questions or make any kind of comments. Anybody here have questions for Rose on things we haven't covered or you think we should cover, etc.? Anybody? Do, 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 do. Okay, well, we'll keep going. If you think of questions, you can put it in the chat, or maybe you're too shy to talk or show your face, but you can put it in the chat, and we'll ask it for you. We'll pretend like we're you. And the other thing is, maybe you haven't thought of a question right now, but you may think of it. And so, maybe jot it down while we're talking, and then when we come back, or raise your hand, let us know you have a question, and then we'll defer to you. So to continue our, go ahead.
I do have a question. We've lost
ahead,
power here in Seneca, so I'm on my iPhone. Excuse me. How are you funded? The amount of supplies that you're giving are wonderful. And I logged on a little bit later, but I didn't hear about the funding.
I write different grants. And so we have really good funders. There's a lot of grants available for food sovereignty, sustainable. So I worked with First Nations Development. I worked with Newman's Own Foundation. I worked with, I have several different church groups that came down to do some volunteer work for us. And so a lot of our donations, I put a thing out on Amazon. And then so we have an Amazon store so people can just donate that item to us. And so we do it that way. But I write grants. We use our produce funding, our produce earnings to purchase the seeds and then the soil and stuff like that from our farmers market, and our trays, things like that, and our propane, whatever money we make from our farmers market, we put right back into the program.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have questions or comments? One of the things you mentioned, one thing I want to clear up is when you say, when it's called a medicine root gardening program, is it because you're doing medicine roots, or is there a place called Medicine Root?
That's the name of our district. So Pine Ridge is made up of 9 districts, and Medicine Root district is ours. And so there's Pahinsite, there's Eagle Nest, so they all have different districts. In English, ours would be Kaya, that's the area, but our Lakota is Prejutahaka, which is Medicine Root.
Okay, good. I mean, it sounds like a very esteemed name, So let's talk about some of the programs, the kind of teaching methods that you're doing. Let's talk about the High Tunnel Project, for example. Many people are not familiar with high tunnel farming. Can you talk about what that is and why it's relevant to our area?
So for our area, we have 140-day growing season. And for us, high tunnels, we got held out big time. We had this really nice quarter-acre gardens outdoors, and it was just flourishing. And it was just doing really well and stuff. And then a hailstorm came and just wiped it out. It was devastating. And it was just depressing to see all of our hard work and everything that just kind of went from being so beautiful and bountiful and everything. And then it was just gone in an instant. And so we figured we are in a high winds area. We are in a hailstorm area and stuff like that. And so somebody called me one day and asked me, hey, do you have a high tunnel? I didn't know what a high tunnel was. And then I go, so you start telling me, you know, you can grow up to your season, you can extend your gardening season and this and that. So I said, okay. And then she said, I have a program that wants to donate a high tunnel to you. So they came down and they put it up. It sat there for 2 years. I had no idea what to do with it. And at that time, I didn't have a gardener. So we start doing the classes and stuff like that. And then we started working in them. But the high tunnels themselves are very useful. You can extend your growing season by at least, for us, we had our tomatoes in there all the way up until November 15th. And they were growing fine until our first really big frost. So you can have several different growing zones inside those high tunnels and extend your growing season and even have an earlier start to your season. So for instance, we can put our tomatoes and our pepper plants into our high tunnel in April, and then we'll have our first tomato by June 3rd. That's really, really early for anybody. So that, you know, but that's the benefits of having the high tunnel, is being able to plant early and extend the growing season. So they're really beneficial for us, especially. So now we have 4 high tunnels. We have one that's strictly a tomato and pepper house. We have one that's our cold weather crops, our lettuces, our broccolis, our root crops, carrots and stuff like that. And then we have one that just has the squashes. So, and they're all teaching, those are things that we use. The students go into and help us prepare those in the springtime.
Mm.
But
So,
we grow, a lot of
go
our
ahead.
stuff is grown vertically. That's how we kind of keep it. And then so this year, our tomato plants, and I don't know if I can share my screen or not, but I'll look for a picture on our vertical growing and stuff. But this year, like we're at a meeting right now, and Doug is our gardener. He just mentioned that the largest tomato plant that he pulled out last year was almost 30 feet long. Took it out from the
Wow.
ground and captured it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what we do, is we grow vertically in the high tunnels.
Excellent. It would be great if we could see a picture of a high tunnel, because I think, you know, if you don't see it, it's a little bit hard to describe. But could you try to describe what it is?
Yeah, I can if you can. I don't know if I can share my screen or not, but
Can we give her the opportunity to share her screen, Colby?
I can look into that. I did put a couple links in the chat too that do have some more information about high tunnels. So, and I
Okay.
think there's some pictures there too. So,
Okay, good. But how do we get those on screen so we know that so that people can see it? Can you, if you see it, Colby, can you put it on yours? Can you put it in so that everyone can see it?
I can try. If you know, if Rose, if you have, if there's a link or something you can put in the chat, maybe that could be the best way to.
it
So
was just
everyone has
it was one of my PowerPoints that I've done that
Okay.
I added up to. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
We can make you a host, and then you can share your screen if you have it on your computer, Rose.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, when you get that, because I think that would be useful for people to see what that is. It will make the conversation more.
You should be able
Meaningful.
to share your screen now.
Okay.
Okay, Rose.
Can you
Okay,
see it?
there we go. Okay.
So
All
this
right.
is our high tunnel here. And so you can have, these are some of our tomato plants. These photos were taken in July. And so those ones with that's the tribal council that's there, the people right there. And then I'm standing there, but that isn't the finished product. These are the ones that were taken in July. And so this is what we do. We grow everything that we have in our high tunnels. They're grown vertically. And it really helps with the disease, and then the water from the bottom and stuff. We don't Our plants are not laying on the ground. We have really excellent gardeners who do a lot of pruning. And so they
Mm.
prune all of the vegetables and they keep them well maintained. So if you go into one of our high tunnels, the rows that you see right there with the, they're bare. They're bare. The only thing that's in there that has the leaves on it is the plant itself. And then we have different trellis methods that we have going on. So those are our vertical ones right there.
Mm, mm. That's a very ambitious project. How have people who, let's say, are not in your program, how have they reacted to this, let's say, a rather different way of growing things?
We do a lot of garden tours. I mean, tours that I didn't even think we would be able to, one day I did 6 tours and I was so exhausted. I was like, man, we're gonna have to start charging for these tours because it's tiring. But we have a really good gardening program, and people, it's one of, I think it's one of the successful programs on the Pine Ridge Indian reservations. We went from having 1 high tunnel to all of the 4 high tunnels that we have. Plus we still have our outdoor gardens. We grow our potatoes under hay, a straw, a no-till garden for our potatoes. We have our corn out in the field. And then a lot of our larger squashes are still in the field. We do have some fruit trees. We have apple trees. We have plum trees. We have the pink cherry trees, but we can't move those. Everything that we have this year, we moved over to our side of the building. And so that way we'll be able to maintain it, but we want to be able to start another fruit orchard on the side of the land that we're on right now. And then we want to start to do chickens, work with chickens.
Mm, mm, mm. Then you can get a Colonel Sanders franchise. Then.
Yeah.
Well, when I was thinking about the when I asked the question about how the community was responding to it, I was thinking about how, like in many cases, when there's something new, it's hard for people to see right away, like, well, what is this and why are you doing it that way? Or because new things are just new things, and by definition, you may not be able to see their value at first. But I noticed that in many communities, once people have been doing something for a while, people start to see it and they see the value in it. So can you talk about any things? Maybe people aren't doing high tunnel, but have you seen some of the techniques, availability of crops and those kind of things? Have you seen any of those things, let's say, leak out into people's home gardens, etc., or do people just come there to garden?
I have to apologize for the background noise and stuff. I'm inside of a community center, but so
Sure.
the pictures that I'm showing you right now, I talked about us going on garden tours. So we do, and people implement a lot of it. A lot of the techniques and stuff that we share with our gardeners, people do their best to try to implement them. And with us providing them with fencing and irrigation. And every year when we come back to that house, if they're in our beginners class or intermediate class or advanced class, every year when we come back, they add on another section to their garden. We don't provide them with the fencing and stuff like that. That's up to them to extend their gardening. But we want to get them started with at least the basic size and the standard irrigation, so that next year, if they do come back, we will have that irrigation and the pieces available for them to purchase. And then they take it upon themselves to, extend their garden in their growing season. But we do have them adding one more element to their garden. This one right here that we have, this is our standard growing garden by the tower. That's one of them. And then underneath, this is I don't know if this is our garlic right here that we have under the hay. That's that second one with the tower. And then one of these ones, the third picture right there, that's a home garden. So this one right here, the first top left picture, that's our gardens at our offices and stuff. And that's the garden that I said that was so beautiful and everything and got hit by hail. People try their best to try to do what we're doing. So every year they add on, we have a person that did basically is, and I don't know if I have a picture of his garden, but everything that we taught them with the midlighter, the square foot gardening, the hay bale gardening, the no-till gardening, the row gardening, everything that we have implemented and shared with him, he implemented everything at his home. And I don't know if I have a picture of his house or anything like that, but they really take pride. There's so much pride taken into everybody's and individual home gardens. Like I said, every year we tour about maybe 40 gardens. Our most successful year that we had a garden tour, it took us 4 days because the reservation is so wide. Kyle is actually centrally located on the Pine Ridge Reservation. So our radius to the nearest town would be like 40 miles. But the furthest the one way away from us was Pine Ridge, and that's like 67 miles away from us. But we have gardens in Pine Ridge. You know, we have people coming from Pine Ridge, we have people coming from Wombly, Martin, Batesman, Manderson, Porcupine. From every area of the reservation, we have people coming to them. So when we go out and we you know, people, some of our families that do the whole gardening program and stuff, they're a little bit embarrassed because their gardens are still full of weeds and they didn't take care of it. But their second or their income is doing powwow dancing. And so we didn't kind of like, you know, frown on them or anything like that. We just wanted to make sure that they actually have some type of food in the ground. So we don't discourage them. We still encourage them to keep doing what they're doing, even though they don't have time to maintain it and stuff. They're still producing some type of food out of it.
Right. And especially if you're doing powwow dancing, there's probably long periods that, you know, that you're not available to be with that garden, and they can sort of get out of hand pretty quick, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I see in the pictures that there are many young people who are participating in this, and I always see that as a great investment for these kinds of things. Can you talk about like their participation and your nurturing them to be gardeners?
Yeah, this is this year's class. We had a group of summer students and stuff, and I think there was like 14 of them. So that the gentleman back there in a red shirt, his name is Doug, he's our garden manager. And even though our centers, you know, they're like within a walking distance and stuff. And when we told the kids they were going on a field trip to the high tunnels, they got so excited because they were able to harvest the zucchini and a tomato and a pepper. And that was something that a lot of them were really anxious about. And so starting them young, these kids are really into it. And I think that, so right here, they're starting our winter crops for us. And so they're starting our cabbages and our broccolis and cauliflowers and stuff. This photo was taken in July, I think it was. And then the other young man right there, his name is Lucas. He's actually went through our garden program. So he just graduated high school last year. And so he was one of the participants that we hired for a summer worker for our garden program. So he's showing the kids how to put the seeds in there. And I think it's really good to have them come and do it. And they get so anxious, they were able to watch their products grow and to figure out that a tomato is actually not at Walmart, you know, that you have to actually grow it on a vine. And then being able to pick your own produce, they were really surprised. They were blown away by it. And so when we told them they could come back in August again and get some potatoes or get peppers and stuff, that was something that they've done too. And I didn't take no pictures of that one, but whatever they got to pick, they got to take home. Some of them never tasted a tomato. We had a kid that just would not eat tomatoes, did not like tomatoes, but now she eats them just straight off of the vine.
Yeah. It's amazing. I know in some programs where they try to get kids to eat vegetables, like in schools, in the school program, but when the kids grew the vegetables, suddenly they were eating vegetables that, you know, the people didn't think they would eat. But a lot of it had to do, one, with, the kind of substandard produce that actually ends up in the market. And people, if that's all you've ever tasted of a tomato, you think a tomato tastes like those things that are bred to fall off a truck at 75 miles an hour and pick it back up and make a sandwich out of it if you find a knife sharp enough to cut it. But and also when people don't know how to cook a vegetable, you can make kids think they hate vegetables just by cooking them wrong all the time, So when they can actually taste them raw, and they actually taste a tomato and all of the different, flavors that change right in your mouth. And if someone shows them different ways to cook it or use it, even if it's in just like a salad or something like that, it's amazing. I would imagine that if you haven't yet, you're going to see some changes in diet in terms of what kids are eating.
Yeah, that's one of our goals, is to have that happen. These are some of the girls. These girls are all they just love the vegetables. They're actually one of our pilot projects where we have the kids growing their own food. And then, so this is Juliana in the purple, and then that's Jessa with the kitty on her shirt. These girls each have their own grow boxes. And so one of them is growing a soup box, is what she's calling it. And then the other one is growing a salsa box, tomatoes, onions, and peppers. And then the other one is growing potatoes, carrots, and turnips, I think it is, but they're root crops. And so, but this family, the mother, she has 5 girls, I think. And then so they have a home garden, but each one of her daughters, and Juliana, the one in the purple, she's the youngest one. They're each doing their own grow boxes. So that's one of the really good things that I love about the program is we've tried many years to get kids involved in our youth center from the beginning, but we weren't able to get them to go out there and participate. And so we took a different road in involving the families, and then, providing them with the incentives and stuff like that, and going to their home and helping them set up their gardens. And then their kids got interested in it. And then when we find a kid that is really interested in it, and we ask them if they want to be part of our program, and then we provide them with I think it's a 4x8 box that we provide them with. And then that's what they use. And then, so if you look at this one back here, this square foot demonstration that we have down here, for that one, for each one of those square foots, you can plant like maybe, you could do 1 tomato plant in each square if she was doing her salsa garden, but she has different varieties of tomatoes that she's doing. She's doing aroma, and she's doing an early girl, and then she's doing, I think it's the heirloom. And then, so each one of those is only 1 plant. But for the other girl that's doing lettuces and the the lettuces and the carrots and stuff, you can put 16 carrots in there, and then 9 onion. I don't know what it is, but each one of those square has a number of items you can put in there. So I really like getting the families involved, and then that way they get their kids involved. And so that's the way that it worked for us, because kids these days don't want to be outside in the heat. They don't want to be weeding. And so for us to get them involved, we got the whole family involved.
And a lot of times, it's like if you're not used to something, that's your first reaction is to reject it, or, just to quote, not want to do it. But then after, especially if you see someone else do it, or one of the things I notice with kids, they don't want to work for you, but they will work with you. It's like if you're doing something and you include them, especially little kids, they want to be sort of like doing what you're doing. And if you start them when they're just starting to walk and just give them anything to do so that they feel like a part of the thing, by the time they get 10 or 12, they're already hooked in it. You could just, they can do it, but they still want you, oddly, they want you to be involved with them. They, at least that's my experience. Maybe it's my, strange smell or something, but anyway, that seems to work.
Yeah. So this is my grandson on the bottom, and he's planted cabbages. That's for a winter crop. But his older sister, her name is Jasmine, and we got her involved in a program probably 2 years after it started, so like in 2018. And she planted only pumpkins. So she's a pumpkin farmer. And so that's all she did. She just planted pumpkins and that was it. The first year, so she sold all her pumpkins. She made, I think it was over $1,100 for a little kid, a 12-year-old selling her pumpkins. $1,100 is a lot of money. And so growing
That's
just
right.
one type of crop is something that we try to encourage people to do too. You don't have to have a full blown out, 100-item vegetable garden or anything. You can just focus on one crop. So that's what she
Yeah.
does. She's a pumpkin farmer. And so Jackson here and their mother never gardened in their life. And so she kind of got adapted to it. So it was my granddaughter that got her family, my son and his wife, involved in gardening. So it can work different ways too, to try to bring them in.
Yeah.
So now we have vegetable gardens. So they just focus on cucumbers, tomatoes, zucchini, and onions, and the pumpkins. There's nothing big. You don't have to have a big full-on blown out garden to be a gardener.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm going to open it up again one last time to our esteemed audience. If you have questions, comments, anybody? Just
I had a
sort
couple,
of,
excuse me, I had a
ahead,
couple
Kate.
questions.
Hmm.
Do you have environmental factors in that area? I'm East River. I considered a high tunnel, but with your hail and your wind and your heat, do you have air conditioning or venting, or do you have netting over the high tunnel? And also the fence that you provide for the home garden, is that a factor in the wind, or is it just animals? So you have extreme temperatures, I'm assuming, out there, or am I wrong, that you have to deal with?
No, we have really high heats and stuff, and then we have really high winds. So your the high tunnels that you normally buy from like a store, I mean a garden store and stuff, come with a 6mm plastic. The first year that we got our high tunnel, I mean, it just totally took it away. The first wind that we got, the first hailstorm that we got, it just ripped it to shreds. And so we bought another one with the 8mm plastic and stuff, and it was a little bit better. It lasted for 2 years, but we came across this plastic that we found that works for us, and it's a 10-ply woven plastic. And so we have had it on our high tunnel for the past 5 years. I think we're going on 5 years now, and it works awesome. We even took the high tunnel down and moved it to another location, and we're still using that plastic. So we do have really extreme high winds and stuff. We do use shade cloths. So we have shade cloths on our high tunnels. As far as air conditioning, no, we don't have air conditioning in them. We do use some fans. One of our high tunnels, we're trying to convert it into a year-round grow house. So we did install some heat in it. We do have several different heating components in it. It's not an NRCS high tunnel. It's one that we bought on our own, so there's no restrictions on it. I know that when you work with NRCS or any of those programs, you may have certain restrictions for a number of years, but this one that we have, we bought on our own, and we're converting it into a year-round grow house. So we installed some heaters on either end, on both ends, and so it's working.
Wonderful.
She said, wonderful. I have a question about crops. I visited many years ago. I visited a Hutterite farm, and they were growing melons that they were harvesting in December, and that was in South Dakota. And I'm not sure that it's appropriate, but it's just one of those kind of things that I feel like I have to ask in terms of where you're going. What are the things, what do you see compared to where you are now? What are some of the things that you would like to bring that you don't have now? And, you know, maybe somebody out there might have some ideas of how to put some wind in those sails.
So I don't know where we're going. Honestly, I just want to be able to have fresh produce available for the communities, for our community and the people in our community. I want them to be able to come to the youth center and be able to pick up, you know, a green pepper at a decent price, because our grocery stores and stuff, you know, all the trucks and whatever that come in, our price is probably about 75 cents cheaper than the normal grocery store. I want to be able to have people have their own gardens. I want to be able to encourage people to cook a little bit healthier. And I want people to be able to learn how to cook it, but also learn how to preserve it. And, you know, with our new youth center, we have the old one that we're using as a farmer's market. You know, eventually maybe we can have our own grocery store, and we're still looking into other things. We're going into bees right now. We have 3 hives and 3 or 4 hives that, and then we have a honey extractor. We want to go into chickens for egg production. We do have people near us that are doing brooder chickens, or brooder chickens. Just being able to grow and have that networking within our communities of different people being able to come to our farmers market and sell their produce. Like today, we are in Sturgis at a flower workshop because we want to incorporate flowers into our farmers market. We want to be able to have all of these options available for people around us so that they can have an opportunity to earn some type of income for themselves. Like I said, being able to, the one thing that I've always heard on our reservation is that there's no jobs available. Well, you know, this is a seasonal type of thing, and being able to have this farmers market or this market that we have at the center, you know, there's an opportunity for people to showcase their artwork, you know, baked goods, or, you know, anything that they have. So the farmers market itself, even though it's seasonal, that's enough income to help maybe buy your kids some sneakers or school supplies or something like that. We have had one person make enough money to buy herself a high tunnel. We had another gentleman that had enough money to buy himself a tiller. So there's opportunities there that we're trying to create that may not be available for our area. So just being able to have a space and create different opportunities for people who might not know what to do. You know, maybe they have the land that they just don't know what to do with it. I don't know. I'm just trying to create some type of seasonal entrepreneurs for different people.
I think that's a very, very, let's say, open approach, and that approach can probably open up ideas or opportunities that you wouldn't normally come across if you already had, you know, to focus. I mean, it's nice to have focus, but you know, it's you can get so focused you missed opportunities. Can you tell us something about the cooking classes now?
Yeah, so like I said, we do preservation, but we also do different kind of classes. This is the cake decorating class that we had. We had a fresh produce kind of classes, and then with our preservation, we work with cucumbers, tomatoes, beets, green beans, and I think there's one more, zucchini. And so we did zucchini relish, and then we made dill and kosher pickles. We did tomatoes. But we try to teach people how to do 2 lessons in water bath canning, 2 lessons in dehydration, 2 lessons in pressure canning. And then, like I said, this year we have a new freeze dryer that we're trying to learn how to use. But our cooking classes themselves are not necessarily just for the fresh vegetables. We have had just basic equipment classes in our cooking classes, how to use, you know, how to bake a cake with electric mixer, or, you know, we did making meatloaf or making bread. So those classrooms that we have there are available for a whole different, there's different culinary things that we can do in there, but we're lucky to have it for our preservation and teach the young kids how to make vegetables and stuff. I have some, these were older pictures, but I don't have my new ones on there, but we have people learning how to chop up some vegetables and how to saute them. So it can be used for anything.
Right. That's really great, especially when you know you're talking about working with young people. I mean, just even basic knife skills. You know, it's like most of the cooking classes that I've taken. The first thing they want you to do is have good knife skills, because it's not so many kinds of cooking that doesn't use some kind of knife. You know, and having those knife skills and being able to change the taste and the texture of your food just by the way you cut it, it's kind of a thing. One last thing I'd like to get into is something you have pictures up of now, and you had mentioned, you know, the farmers markets and the mobile truck and even your store. Can you talk about the entrepreneurial opportunities that you are attempting to bring into the community, entrepreneurial skills and opportunities?
So, like I said, we have like the center, stuff, and there's opportunities for you to kind of learn about your art or your sewing or, you know, cooking, anything that has to do with. So we have this girl that took our cultural class on learning how to do star quotes. Now she can just, you know, she has the capability of completing a star quote like in 2 days. She's really fast. Those are the type of people that you can bring over to the farmers market, and she can sell her work there, you know, and so being able to have that ability to create some type of art piece, maybe it's a painting. We have an artist that come in, and we don't have one select person to come in and do these classes. We collaborate with different people across the reservation that has a certain type of talent. I don't have one set instructor for my art room. I don't have one set instructor for my leadership or my financial literacy or for the sewing, because I believe that there's a lot of talented people out there with different talents, and a lot of them didn't finish high school, but they have this cultural or some kind of art, some kind of sewing, whatever it is that they want, you know, they have. I want them to come in and share their experiences or their talents with our community, and let them, you know, because there's no one person that can teach everything. And so we don't have a set art teacher or set sewing class. We bring in different people from the community to ask them to share their work on quilting, on regalia making, on concho belt making, on beading, on painting, anything like that. So we bring in consultants to do our classes for us. This picture right here, that we have, this is the food distribution that we do. So if we have an overabundance of our produce and stuff and it's not selling at our market, a nonprofit organization purchases it, and then we have a vegetable distribution for the community. So that's another component of what we do. So we share our produce within the communities.
Wow, that is really wonderful. And I have to say that the thing that comes to mind as you're explaining how you're using the talent and resources that you have, I think we used to call it each one teach one. You know, it's like everybody has something, and if we have something that they know and that they can do better than other people who haven't thought about it as much, they can share their information, and then the people that they share with, they also know something, and then pretty soon you have a very educated community, because they all have knowledge, and they can, you know, they can pitch in whenever they need to. We have actually come to the end of this program, I mean, in terms of our time, and I want to thank you again for being a part of this program, and I look forward to seeing what you guys do next. Maybe you can get you to come back and you know, within a year or so, and then, you know, even at the spring or something, just to see how this year has gone. And I plan to come out, and I was just thinking one of the things I can do is I do a photography workshop on on basically exploring your community through your camera. I call it photo safaris. And so that might be some, especially with your produce, you know, and the vegetable things, like taking a picture of those. So let's, you know, of your garden will give kids a chance to see something, and adults too, something of that project that you can't see with the naked eye, but you can get it in the camera and blow it up, and they'll be amazed at what they see. So like, we can have a conversation about that. Thanks again. And I'd like to thank all of our esteemed panel for joining us. And we hope you'll come back next week, same time, same station. Goodbye.